have decided that I am going to conquer feta once and for all. I am tired of not knowing what I'm doing when it comes to feta. I am tired of not having feta. I am tired of feeling a little bit clueless and inept and having like imposter syndrome. So today I am going to make 8 gallons of milk into feta. 2 different kinds. We're going to try a Bulgarian kind. We're going to try a Greek kind. We're just going to knock this out and get over myself. I'm done with this. Already this morning I put about 6 gallons of milk into the cooking pot, turned it on and heated it to about 85 degrees, at which point I added calcium chloride diluted in a little bit of water. And I added the culture, which today I'm using clabber culture, which is my favorite type of culture to use. That's about, a quarter cup per gallon of milk. And then set the timer for an hour. The pot wasn't full yet though, because my husband was out milking. When he came in, he brought in the last 2 gallons, topped off the pot, and then we finished the culturing. And then I added the rennet, an 1/8 teaspoon per gallon of milk, so it's a very low amount of rennet. So when you're making feta cheese, almost all the recipes start with the same process. You heat milk to about 90 degrees, let it culture for an hour, and then you add your rennet and let it go for an hour. At that point, it deviates a little bit. You can either cut the curds and put them in a bag and drain them. That's a more creamy style feta. Or you can make the Greek crumblier version that involves stirring the curds a little bit in the whey first. And then we get down to the brining. You can do heavy salt brine, 8% brine, dry salt at first. You can add the salt to the curds before you even do anything. Because most feta cheese recipes seem to have the same beginning steps, I decided to start with the same beginning steps, 8 gallons of milk, and then at a certain point kind of split. It's set, but it could use longer. I'm going to give it another 20 minutes. It's been actually an extra half hour because my daughter was vacuuming. Plus a little bit more acidifying in the pot is just fine. All recipes call for cutting the curds. Some cut them like at 1/2 inch, some cut them 3 inches. Whatever you do, cut the curds. I'm going to just do that first in some larger columns. And I'm going to let this rest for about 10 minutes to let the curds heal before we start with the next step. Bulgarian feta is a creamier feta, so you do not want to stir the curds. You want to keep a lot of the moisture, a lot of the whey in the cheese as you're going along. You want to be gentle. So I'm going to start with Bulgarian. We're going to skim off these curds, about half of them, and I'm going to start hanging that. That's the number 1 step for Bulgarian feta. This thing is getting kind of full, so I'm going to just move this kettle. I'm going to let these just sit here for right now and drain. You want to save the whey so that you can brine the cheese. So I'm going to be collecting this as it comes out. I'm going to probably need at least 2 gallons of whey. Look at how just lovely that is. This is gorgeous. I love it. So I'm going to tie this up. So this is going to go into my downstairs bedroom where I'm going to hang it up on a hook and let it drain for 5 hours. The whey that is going into the buckets is discard because those buckets, I'm not sterilized them, they're not used, they're for pig food and everything else. So I'm not worrying about that. This is the way I'm going to keep, and the whey that's in the kettle with this one. I'm going to put them all together and hopefully get a couple gallons. And for a Greek style feta, you're supposed to cut these curds down a little bit more. We want these curds to get stirred. We want more whey to come out for a drier, crumblier feta. Now these just get gently nudged about. I'll set the timer for 15 minutes. And I'll stir these occasionally. When making a huge mess like this, it is super important that you stay abreast of things by washing things up, because otherwise your kitchen completely disintegrates. It's been 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and I'm gonna let it keep going for, let's say, another 20 minutes. Then we'll start the draining process. This whole timing of how long you cook it for, how long you agitate it in the whey, depends based on what you want. And I don't know what I want because I haven't done this yet. So just messing with it. They're at the bottom, kind of, not really. They're not actually that low, below the whey. Let's just hang this up and let stuff strain. It'll go down. I can see it's gonna go down. It'll be fine. I'm just impatient. Actually, no, it's not gonna be fine. I'm getting another cheesecloth. Ridiculous. Okay, let's get this out of here for a minute and then we'll consolidate them. Oh, this is the first time I've touched the curds and they are like thick jello. At first touch, they don't feel like they have a rind on it. That's full. Are we having fun yet? I think figure that this one has a higher pH, is less acidic than this one because this has been sitting and stirring for a little bit. So this one is a lower pH, higher acidity, which is the goal. I'm going to mix the two together so that I get the same pH of the brine, whatever it ends up being. Whee! I'm losing my curds! No! No! I do not have much finesse. This is so full. I gotta put these together somehow. This is the sort of problem I knew I was gonna have. Stay put, don't fall apart again. I want all the curds to go into this bag. And I'm gonna take this bag and dump it into here. Now I have all the curds in here. This is supposed to drain for 10 minutes. You add a 1/3 cup of salt to the curds at this point for every 2 gallons of milk. I have approximately 4 gallons worth of curds, so I'm going to add 2/3 cup of salt and work this in. This reminds me of the cheddaring process. So if you think of adding salt to the curds prior to pressing, you're going to get a drier, crumblier cheese because the salt is going to be expressing more of the whey, then making the curds a little bit harder to knit together. So this is the part, I think, that gets you the Greek style, the harder, the crumblier cheese. I'm trying to scrape along the bottom of the cheesecloth because that's where the curd matted, and I want this whey to get out and the salt to mix in. So I want to make sure that drier part gets lifted into the wetter part. Here's the second. And I am doing them scant because this just feels like a lot of salt to me, but this is what it says to do. So I guess I gotta do it. I know a bunch of it will run out, but still, man, this feels wrong. Okay, supposed to let this drain for another 10 minutes. Just taste it. It's delicious. It doesn't even taste that salty. How is that possible? You can see how much it is sunk down. There's like a couple inches of whey in the bottom. So the question I'm always asking myself throughout this process is if I did 8 gallons of milk, my maximum capacity of milk, into feta cheese and chose one method, would my equipment support it? This has gone down quite a bit. So yes, if I put it into 2 colanders using the other one and worked with it a little bit, it will shrink down to the size that I think will go into this mold. Let's see. The goal is to just lift this straight up out of here and plop it into the press. Whale, it's right to here. So technically, maybe 4 gallons is about the max. 6 if I use the collar, 5 ideally. So I'm not really pressing it. It's like squidging down in to hold its shape. I'm gonna let this go for 45 minutes because I have to leave. It's supposed to be an hour, just enough time to let it consolidate. Whoa! I'll come back and press on this a couple times in the next 45 minutes and then flip it. It's very soft and wobbly. I'm gonna add a little bit of weight to this now. That's right around 10 pounds. We're going down just a wee bit, not much. Gonna let this sit about 1.5 hours. This is looking so pretty. And it still feels quite jello-y, soft. All right, 12 hours is gonna be at 1:30 in the middle of the night, so this is going till morning. You're supposed to press it at the weight of the cheese, very low pressure. That's like at 20 pounds. For the Bulgarian style cheese, after 4 to 5 hours, it is supposed to be put into a form and pressed with the weight of the curd. I do not have a mold, but I'm going to stack the bags on top of each other or beside each other with a board on top and just let the bag be the form because I don't have more molds. They have shrunk considerably and they are still dripping. So you can see that these are still very jiggly and loose, like I'm just squinching it and it's just like soup in there and they're still dripping a lot of whey. I am going to just stack this on top of this one. Actually, I don't know if that's a good idea. And here's the reason why. When I put it on top, the top one was opening up over the bottom one. So I want to keep these kind of snug. I'm going to get a plate to set this down on top. And this is supposed to be kept at warm temps, like 72, which this house is not 72 right now. So I'm going to put hot water in here. It's just a little bit of weight. Look at all the whey. You can see how jiggly this still is. Just gonna continue pressing it. I'm gonna add a little bit more water into here. All right, to make an 8%, okay. Some feta recipes call for putting the feta into a fully saturated salt brine for a period of time. Almost all feta recipes call for, at some point, putting the feta into an 8% brine solution. Sometimes you move from the fully saturated to the 8%. Sometimes you only use the 8%. Sometimes you dry salt the cheese and then add it to the 8% salt brine. I'm doing a mishmash. I am going to make a lot of 8% brine though. It is approximately 1 cup of non-iodized salt per gallon of whey. So I'm going to measure out 2 gallons of whey, a cup of salt on each one, and I'm going to set them aside until I'm ready to use that brine. And I might have to add vinegar to it to acidify it even further. We'll see. It can be like between 8%, 10%, 12%. Some people do 20%. So you can do all kinds of things. You can do whatever. Just let this sit at room temperature and it'll eventually get stirred in or shaken in or dissolved in. This is still a little bit warm. This keeps listing to one side. I'm gonna put a bowl in here instead, and hopefully that'll make it a little bit more even.
Hello and welcome to Jennifer Cooks. Oh, jeez. Ow.
Oh, we can't get this back out. Uh-oh. And this. So this should probably go till bedtime. It is feeling much firmer. So see how it's just kind of boinging? I think it's working. I'm going to start with the Greek style feta this morning. This has shrunk down and is sitting directly on the top. I pushed it down last night, so it's not pressing anymore. It smells funky, a little bit sour. This has been in here so long, I'm pretty sure this is acidified a lot. Let's weigh it. 5 pounds, 6 ounces. Okay, so if that was about 4 gallons worth of milk, more or less, that's a good yield. More moisture will still come out because we're gonna be salting this and it's gonna pull out more whey, so it will shrink down. Certain recipes say to slice it into like large rectangles, 4 inches by 4 inches. Other people slice it into thin wedges. You can do whatever you want. I'm just gonna do these into wedges. Oh, that's sliced smooth, and look at that. That's a beautiful texture. Like it has the holes. That's really gorgeous. It's a little bit squeaky. It's tangy but sweet. It's not too salty. That's delicious. So this is a sided cookie sheet with a cooling rack perched on top, and then this mat that I got from Amazon. It says to salt these on all sides and then let them go for 24 hours, adding more salt, flipping occasionally as needed. Some people measure the amount of salt. I'm not gonna bother. I'm gonna put this in the downstairs bedroom where it's a little bit cooler. Just keep checking on this throughout the day. This is the Bulgarian feta, and I'm a little bit concerned. This has been sitting in the brine and not very correctly pressed. So this could be interesting. This one has no salt in it so far. This is weird looking. Ooh, see? Yep. It is still quite milky in there and is not set properly, and it is tearing, and it's harder there. It's more like chicken. Okay, we got to figure this one out. Last night, it was supposed to be cut into cubes and either put into a saturated brine for a number of hours before being moved to an 8% brine, or it could be sliced up and just salted and eaten dry in a few days. I'm concerned because there's whey in it, and like that's soft because nothing was pressing it directly, and this is harder. I'm gonna just, what am I gonna do? Let's cut this into slices, pretend it's fine, which it's not. Yeah, see how that's so much smoother? It's almost like glass, but that has whey in it right there, and this doesn't. Can you see how that is like whiter there and squidgy? And then this is more yellow and firm and rubbery, and it's just uneven the whole way through. I was doing everything wrong. But you know, if I had hung it in a bag and let it just drain and then cut it, I still think the outside edge would be tighter and the center would be like this. So I don't know that this is gonna be a complete failure. We're gonna just put chunks over here and salt them. This is gonna be called rustic feta. Things can look ugly and still be delicious. Oh, I just tasted it. That is tangy, but it's also sweet. That's not bad. This one might actually turn out really good. And I'm just going to salt these up pretty good. I'm gonna let this sit at room temperature over on the dining room table because I will be monitoring this much more closely. See how squidgy that is? You can see where like there it squidges. This feels dry. I don't like that. I think this one is going to be way better than this one. That's my best bet. This is the part that is confusing to me, and I kind of just figured out why. Certain recipes, like in this one for the feta, say to put it in a brine solution of salt and water. You can't just put feta in a brine solution of salt and water. It needs to have calcium chloride in it. It needs to have white vinegar in it. If it doesn't have calcium chloride, the cheese will get mushy because it's not balanced. And you need to have the appropriate acidity in the brine. And then, this one says to use 8% brine solution, 8 ounces of salt to 3 quarts of water, but it doesn't say how much calcium chloride to add or how much vinegar to add. So there's all these variables floating around and nothing is very clear and it's complicated. I don't think it is complicated. I think it just isn't clear. There's gaps in knowledge, including mine. Anyway, this is the whey that I saved from 2 days ago, and it's just been sitting there. It has the salt in here, and I don't even think I stirred it in properly. Just making sure it's not gone bad on me. The cream rose to the top, and you can see down there below there's salt in the bottom. So we're gonna stir this up. So this I do not need to add calcium chloride to because this is the whey, the calcium is in it from making the cheese. It's salty. It's actually yummy. Who knew? Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of white vinegar to it. From what I saw other people do, I think they added about 3 tablespoons per half gallon. I'm just gonna do a quarter cup. The ideal pH is 4.6 to 4.8. If you go below that, it's okay. You just don't want it to be too much higher than that. This is vinegar, right? I didn't even look at it. Oh yeah, it's nice. It's a little bit more tangy. To recap all this chaos, 8% brine solution is the whey from making the feta, 1 cup of salt, and a quarter cup of white vinegar, I think. They're thick, they feel firm, they're not floppy. Woohoo, this is exciting. Oh, and you wanna see how much whey is on the bottom? That much, probably a quarter to a half cup. Oh, these look gorgeous, look at those. I think this method is the way to go. Look how beautifully that broke. It's quite salty, but it tastes really, really yummy. The texture is good. It has that little bit of a crumbliness to it. So I'm kind of pushing that in. This is firm stuff. There we go. It's pretty firm, but there's a little bit of give, like right in there. And this is firmer over on this side. But there's like a gap right here where there's some whey in that part. This tastes a lot saltier than the other, even though this kind had salt milled into it before it was even pressed. This one tastes saltier. I don't want to say chalky or pasty, but there's like a, I mean, I suppose it's creamy, but it doesn't have that crumbliness that I think I associate with feta. Oh, it is salty. It does slice very prettily, very smooth, kind of silky. This is more fragile than the other one. You know what? I'm just gonna cut up one of these, I think, and stuff it in. It will hold it down. Kind of creates a top for it. So this is Belgian feta. Feta is supposed to be aged at room temperature for 1 week and then moved to 55 degrees for 2 weeks and then transferred to the fridge indefinitely. So I'm gonna put this, where am I gonna put it? I guess just on the counter where I put all my stuff. I feel like we have a little feta colony over here. I'm noticing that this Belgian is looking kind of goopy at the top. The Greek feta, they look fine. And actually we had that last night for supper and it was so good. Doesn't look like it's floating too much. There's that mat that's there. I think it's fine. There's a piece right there, but it's staying down. Okay. It didn't feel slimy at all. So several days out, you can see how it is clearing a little bit. It's looking less milky. I just tasted this Belgian and it's not too salty. But I just want you to see how clear it is getting in the jars. So these will sit here for 2 weeks and then we will move them to the actual fridge. Hey, the feta cheese has been at Cheese Cave temps for the last week. So it has another week to go and then it's going to go into the fridge. So we're going to check that and make sure it's not slimy or weird. I do have some that's been in the fridge because we used it for the barn raising. I wrote about that on my newsletter, Splash. Do you ever want to sign up and find all the behind the scenes stuff? Go check it out at milkslinger.com. It was a huge hit. I actually really loved it. And my husband, who does not like feta, thought it was fine. So here we got the Belgian feta and the Greek feta. So it's floating on top. I mean, it's not completely covered, but I'm not too worried about it at this point. It smells a little bit funky, but not bad. And it is like some seriously hard cheese. Look at that. Like, I think that I could be brining this in oil, which is something I do want to try. It does not feel like it's slimy and it just crumbles off like that. It's delicious. It has a bit of a funk to it, but I like it. Like, it's a little bit musky and milky and creamy and salty. It's good. It is also not slimy. Break off a piece. This tastes different. This does not taste musky. It does not have a funk. It's a little bit brighter, tangier, a little bit of a chalkiness, which might be the creaminess factor. It's really good. It's not as strong as the Greek feta, which kind of surprises me. All right, let's go check what's at Cheese Cave Temps now and just make sure it's not slimy. You see how it's like clear, but it's more milky at the top. I think that's little pieces and stuff floating up to the top. So the other ones were right in here, and they look very nice. That's a Greek one. They're both Greek. Oh, it's got mold on top, y'all. Look at that. Yikes. Okay, what do we do about that? Let's check this one. Does this one have mold? Oh, shit. Shit. What do I do? Go back, Danny. Go away. Go. Thank you. Let me suffer alone in silence here in my basement of doom with my moldy cheese. It smells just a little bit funky. This is like Geotrichum candidum. Guys, I've never done this. I am thrilled, actually. Let me get a bowl and a spoon. Okay, I'm gonna skim off this one first because it's less. Here we go. Okay, it is not slimy. This tastes really good. That's amazing. Let me get a paper towel and wipe out the lid. It's almost like cream on the top, a moldy cream. I'm gonna put this out to the fridge today just because I don't want that mold to keep going. Oh, what is that? Oh, it's the plastic. Look at that. Science experiment, you guys. Maybe this is cheese that got above it, like floaties. You can see there, it's like yellow greenish. It smells musky, funky, but not bad. And I'm gonna put these, all three of them, into the barn fridge because obviously it might be time. Something I have been wanting to do is marinate this feta in olive oil. From what I understand, you want to wait at least 24 hours to eat it. Maybe longer. It can last a couple weeks in the fridge. We have hit some warm weather, and this is just going to be a way to elevate the feta so that it's ready to go for summery salads and cheese plates, or to toss it with pasta and this olive oil. So good. So I'm kind of cobbling together what I think would be good in this. I've got feta, lemon zest, black pepper, oregano, parsley. I'm gonna mash in some garlic and just make the thing. That smells really funky. I also wanted to check in and see if this is getting soft at all. This is the Belgian, and it's not dissolving at all. It tastes absolutely wonderful. Some little crumblies. Oh, that's getting some mold on it, look. See that piece that was out of the brine? It's getting some mold. I took both Belgian and Greek to work, and the group was evenly split on which one they preferred, and their preferences were very strong. One of the people said, this is not salty, it is briny, which I agree. Let's do some parsley. You could do fresh. I'm doing dried because that's what I have. Oregano, black pepper. I want some red pepper. You could also do jalapeno. There is our mix. That's lovely. It just tastes like a wonderful salad. This would be so good just tossed with black olives and cucumbers and red onions and pasta. Yeah, it'd be really good. This is going into the fridge where it will sit for a day or so. Then we're going to eat it in salad. So here's the feta, and I'm just scooping it out. It was chilled, and so when it's chilled, it gets thick, like almost like crystallized honey, which is fine because it's just all going in here, all the herbies. And then I just crumble it up. Just get some of this delicious olive oil. Take the pepper out of it. I think it needs more cheese. This is exquisite. And if you'd have grilled chicken, that'd be fabulous. Gonna stick it back in the fridge. This is my supper. Well, not all of this, but you know, a lot of it. Just realized I was forgetting the lemon. So put a squidge of lemon on this. And now I'm going to be eating my third bowl of this because it's pretty darn incredible.